I want to welcome everyone to the Live Well Kalkaska Substance Free Coalition's Coffee with the Coalition Forum. This is an open and informal discussion about substance use disorders and related topics and concerns within the Kalkaska community in Northern Michigan. So I'd like everybody who's on here to introduce themselves. I'm Suzanne Prentice. I'm the coordinator of the Live Well Kalkaska Substance Free Coalition, and I am Kalkaska's prevention specialist through Catholic Human Services Up North Prevention. Mary?
I'm Mary Grumman. I'm an LPC and I'm in Traverse City. I'm a master trainer with the 45th Parallel Resilience Network.
All right, thanks, Sharon.
I am Sharon Vreeland. I am a community champion with the 45th Parallel Resilience Network, working on becoming a master trainer. And I am the coordinator of the Substance Free Coalition of Northwest Michigan, and I am the prevention specialist through Catholic Human Services Up North Prevention for Leelanau County.
John?
I'm John Supernaw. I am a peer recovery coach and community outreach point person for Catholic Human Services. I'm also a member of the Live Well Coalition with Suzanne and a number of other coalitions, Grand Traverse Coalition, Antrim County Coalition. I also do resource tables around Traverse City, one at Safe Harbor, one at the Methodist Church. I'm a CPA also, so I do money management also for our clients at Catholic Human Services. And I'll just stop there.
All right, thanks, John. Brooke?
Hi, I'm Brooke Van Proyen. I am the Community Engagement and Support Manager for Dave Lodge at St. John's, and I oversee our statewide Adoptive Family Support Network program that provides lived experience support by adoptive, foster, kinship, guardianship, parent consultants like Deborah Frisbee here, who will be speaking today. So we're here to offer support to families in need.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Mindy? We can't hear you for some reason. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. We can move on while you try to figure it out. Sound good? Okay, let's Jeannie?
Hi, I'm Jenny Groover. I am a project associate with the NMORT team. I've been with the team since September of last year.
All right, thanks for being here. Belinda, my assistant.
Hi, my name is Belinda Mercado. I'm a prevention specialist and I work with Suzanne here in Kalkaska County.
And she is a blessing because I can't do it all. So can you speak now, Mindy, or? Yeah, no, we can't hear you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on, and then maybe you can. Oh, yes, I can hear.
Okay, perfect. Just changing stuff around. I'm Mindy Fernandez, and I work with, I'm legislative director for State Representative John Roth.
Awesome. So he got my message.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Office hours in Kalkaska on Monday.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay, so I am going to introduce our guest, Deborah Frisbee. She's the parent consultant of the Adoptive Family Support Network. Debbie is going to be presenting on kinship, guardianship, foster parenting, and adoption concerns and struggles, how the opioid epidemic has affected them in the Kinship Coalition. So go ahead and take it away, Debbie.
Yeah, my name is Deb Frisbee, and I have worked since 2015 for the Adoptive Family Support Network. And how that came about was I adopted 2 children in 2007 and 2 grandchildren, and I had had them since 2003, and I joined a grandparents raising grandchildren support group in Grand Rapids because I felt so isolated. And then in 2010, this is just kind of speeding through my life, I moved up to, or 2012, we moved up to Benzie, Manistee County. We're right on the borderline at Crystal Mountain. And I started I had been a CASA prior to that, and then I started volunteering in the schools instead of doing my CASA work in this area. And I realized how many children were living with relatives and grandparents raising grandchildren. And I told my husband, man, we know too much to let these people just be out here doing this with no support at all. So along with post-adoption resource centers at Bethany, they said, well, we'll help you get a grandparents raising grandchildren support group started. So that's how it all began. And then they heard about AFSN and the parent-to-parent program that was coming on board and told me that I should apply for that. So I did that, and I've been there since 2015. So although it says that I just want everybody to be clear that we are a post-adopt support under DAB St. John's, but we also care for and find resources for foster, adoptive, kinship, informal guardianship, power of attorney. If you're raising children other than your own, we want to support you. So I want to introduce my family to you. This is the kids. They were quite a bit younger there. I just want to show you the difference. And I always say this because I see it so clearly that my son here always had to fake a smile when he had his pictures taken. But this is a picture with his mom, and there's nothing fake about that picture. He loved her to death and knew that she struggled with substance abuse and mental illness, but he was going to be loyal to her forever. Unfortunately, we lost our daughter in March of 2022 to suicide. I show the rest of my family. This is my oldest daughter. I show the rest of my family and my 2 grandchildren, my adopted granddaughter, Riley, because this is going into being a relative caregiver or a kinship, or, whatever you want to call the people who are raising children other than their own biological children. It affects all of the family. And the dynamics change. When we first took the kids, the relationship with my oldest daughter was very strained, very strained. So I say all that because if you're working with these caregivers, or you're working even with people in rehab, I just want people to be aware how the dynamics change, and how maybe part of your job can be to help those families bridge the tension that's always there in these families. So Michigan adoption facts, there are approximately 11,000 children in foster care in Michigan at any given time, between 10 and 11,000. Approximately 11,000 children are in foster care, including more than 200 children who are in need of a forever family through adoption. More than 1,650 children are adopted from Michigan Child Welfare System in the fiscal year 2021. in 2015, an average 51% of children were adopted by their foster parents, 40% of children were adopted by relatives, and 9% of children were adopted by a recruited family. I think you're going to see a shift in that number of children who are adopted by relatives. In Michigan, we're doing families first, and so the department is, mandated to look for family first to find homes for children. We know that the well-being of the child is much better in care of someone who knows them and who has been a part of their life. So Michigan ranks 18th in the country for the number of children per capita placed in out-of-home care. What is out-of-home care? It's things like foster care, shelter, residential treatment, guardianships, etc. The rate of children confirmed as victims of abuse or neglect has increased by 30% from 2010 to 2016. And I always remind people that most of these reports that are coming are cases of neglect. And so, although that's the same trauma for these kids, it's because of the parents' drugs usage or whatever, that the children are more neglected in these cases than they are abused. So this is the information that I want you to pay close attention to, because unlike Susan, who fostered her child and adopted, I was a guardian to my grandchildren, which people use the terminology formal foster care through the child welfare system, and we use informal caregiver who took guardianship or power of attorney without the state involvement, and that is done through probate court. So in Michigan, there's 185,000. This data is from 2021. So in Michigan, children living in homes where a relative is head of the household is 185,926. Of those, children being raised by kin with no parent present, there are 54,000. And these are grand facts that came from Generations United, the Annie Casey Foundation. And these are just estimated because they were, I can't explain to you without being in front of me, but they came part from the census, and so there was just some equations that they did to come up with the 54,000. I believe that number is way, way low. There are many more children than the 54,000 who are living with relatives with no parent present. And then 4,675 children of the 11,000 in Michigan are in relative homes. So they're in foster care, the formal child welfare system, and they are living with a relative, fictive kin, or a kinship. And then in 54,917 grandparents responsible for their grandchildren in Michigan. But for every one child raised by kin in foster care, there are 12 being raised by kin outside of foster care. And if I get time to do my other presentation about the Michigan Kinship Care Coalition, these are the children that I am working to level the playing field, because these are the people who are living in your county who are living with very little support. And Post-Adopt Resource Center is also a resource for your area, but it's primarily for children who are in the formal foster care system. So when the wheels fell off in our home at 13 with my son, Park was my first call that I made. What do I do? Where do I go? And unfortunately, they said, we can't help you because you didn't adopt from foster care. I was that informal guardianship. And those are the families that AFSN helps find resources for the best we can, and to help them feel less isolated, and to just get them connected where they need to be connected for whatever it is that they need. So in the kids count data, you can see that the numbers are rising, and I don't have the latest data on this, but I gotta try to move my screen over because I wanted you to see. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Let me move this. So can you see Lake County, Wexford County, and these 5 worst counties for children being investigated? And again, I just want to say that I'm really thankful that these people who are in rehab or whatever, their children are living in someone's home. And, I'm really thankful too, when I'm talking about the child welfare system and the lack of supports for the formal and the informal, I just want to say that I'm also thankful that, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services isn't ripping kids out of homes just because the parents are in rehab or whatever. So we call that diversion because maybe it warranted a safety plan, but it didn't warrant a removal. And so that's how come that number is so high for families who are part of that estimated 54,000. Confirmed cases, again, we're looking at the 5 best counties. I don't know why these are I don't know why I'm happy to see Leelanau on there for sure. I don't know if there's more supports there for people or, what the reasons are for their rate lower. And then again, the Lake County, we know it's not far from us, living here in northern Michigan, Kalkaska and Wexford. 18.9 per thousand of confirmed cases of abuse and neglect. And then of those being placed in out-of-home care, we see the 5 best and the 5 worst. And Lake County just keeps coming across that. Mindy, can you tell me, John doesn't cover Lake County, does he? Representative Roth?
I think she jumped off. She was having issues with her speaker.
Okay. All right. Well, so here is our parent-to-parent mighty team. So we cover the whole state of Michigan. And of course, Brooke is on the call with us today. We have one that's not in the picture. Her name is Carrie, and she is a full-time moderator of our online support group. And that group has over 5,000 people on it. And because everyone in this private group is either foster, adopt, or guardianship, it's closely moderated, and people might pose a question. They might pose, I need respite. They might be asking about subsidy. They might be asking about trainings that they may need. But I can't even tell you what a helpful resource that is for people, because they get answers within sometimes minutes, and sometimes it might take an hour or two. And so it's a very supportive group. It's a safe place. And I know there's lots of groups that can turn into nothing but griping about MDHHS or this or that or whatever. But this Carrie keeps this group on track and positive. And a lot of the things that we do too is because Mary and Sharon will know from ACEs training that we can't raise these children like we raised neurotypical children. And so there's a lot of reinforcement on the support group to change our perspective and change how we do things. So really, when we have these kids come into our house, we're not going to change anything for them unless we change ourselves. And we, we live that, we talk that, we teach that, we train that. So for better outcomes for our kids. So yeah, that's Deidre is our office manager, and she runs support groups in the Cedar Springs area. Dee is over in the Holland area. Shelly is my boss. And then, of course, there's me. So I am just so proud of this little group because it's amazing what we do. It really is. Our mission is to support the lifelong well-being of adoptive, foster, kinship, and guardianship families. And there again, AFSN, although it says Adoptive Family Support Network, we support all families, regardless of type of adoption or agency affiliation. So AFSN was founded in 1991 through the Family Court Division, now part of DA Blodgett St. John since 2015. And that started with a judge who said, our adoptive families need support. And he started a warm line on his administrator's desk. So all employees are part of an adoptive kinship family. They promote access to community post-adoption resources. We raise awareness within the community about families formed by adoption. We provide a support network throughout the state of Michigan to all adoptive families. We empower and teach how to best advocate for families, and we understand. We're in the trenches, no judgment. So I think that's the biggest part, and I think that's why everyone feels safe to be a part of this village. These are in the blue are all of we have many more since this picture, but these are all trained parent mentors. So what I loved about when I joined this agency was that we don't have to do it all. So we trained trainers in their own communities to go back and do some of the work that we do with the support from AFSN and from other leaders. So, up in the UP, we've got Marcia Van Wolvelaar, who's a teacher, and she, has a foster closet up there that she opened, and just, all those community connections, because I can't know what some of those needs are in that area because I don't live there, but I can call on Marcia, and Marcia can give me the resource that I need to give someone who I was connected to or got in touch with me. So I love having all these people around us. So we have a lending library, and, if they're on that Facebook page, and, they can just call our office for a lending library, any book that they might want to borrow, all about the work that they're doing as a caregiver. And we have the website. We have a Facebook page that I've talked about, and that's there. This is last year's fun event. So we always do one big event for the year, and this was at Double J, and we had this whole area, and actually we had access to everything there. But camping was the most popular. And then we had this whole village to ourselves. And this is such a cool thing to watch transform right in front of your eyes, is that all these people have, are raising children other than their biological children. These aren't all kinships. This is a blend of everybody. And the connections that are made when we do things like this it's remarkable. It's just, I'm in awe when I go to these things and how much I enjoy seeing people make connections. I think the other thing is that when we're at big events like this, because you'll see another picture where we do one at Great Wolf Lodge or whatever. If somebody's kid is like out of control, we're either going to help the parent if it looks like they're stressed and they might need help, or we just understand and you just watch it take care of itself. And there's just no judgment here. I know when we're in a grocery store with some of those children, we're worried about that kind of people looking at us and wondering what in the world we're doing or what the heck is going on. So I think that's the beauty of being with people who share the same bond that you have through relative care. So these are just pictures of, the teens, like teens always feel like, that's another thing about these big events, is that teens always feel out of place. And that was the Double J thing, I think, among all of them, because Great Wolf Lodge is just a different setting. But I think with the Double J event that we did, the connections that got made with the teenagers was it was different, and it was great to see the connections that they made. And that's the Air Zoo in Kalamazoo. So we do different things in different areas. We have the support groups. New groups are forming all the time. And I'm going to do mine virtually for Benzie and Manistee, but anybody can join that. I shouldn't say just Benzie and Manistee. It's statewide. So right now I'm going to do a virtual support group, and I have 26 people signed up to be on that. We do it at 8 o'clock. We're going to do this one at 8 o'clock at night. It's just going to grow organically. I'll see what these families want, if they want to talk about a topic, if they want to have a training, if they want to do a book club. But we'll just get to know each other first, and then see what this group will grow into. It will be strictly kinship, though. This first meeting, I posed the question of what was one dynamic that changed in your family that impacted you the most. And so they'll come into the group, and we'll be able to talk about that. This will be our first in-person meeting statewide. So parent lead agency supported model and facilitated by adoptive parent consultants. So on our website, we have a list of the statewide groups. And that's what that's about. The parent-to-parent program that I was a part of was trained consultants with extensive adoption experience as adoptive parents themselves. And we provide support via email, phone, in person, by calling. And that was 24/7. Oftentimes I would get called on a Saturday or a Sunday, and somebody just might have a question. They might be frustrated, whatever it was. It didn't matter. I was, this is the office number, but when I'm working in areas around here, most people have my phone number. So this was our Great Wolf Lodge that we did for several years. It's been a little harder to work with them now. We used to take over the whole place. But this was just part of the group that was there when we had that event, because we took that on a Sunday morning before we left, and some people had already left. So we just say, surround yourself with people who get it. And that's kind of our mantra. We get it. We understand. How you can help. Let new and existing families know about our services by distributing our brochures. So, anybody that needs any of this information of what we do and what we have, please let Susan know, and I will send her links that she can then send out to all of you. Let us write articles for your newsletters. Refer families to us when they have questions or concerns. Include us on any events you have. Susan, thank you. That's what you did with me today. Let us hear your ideas, because nobody knows your families and the needs in your area better than you do. Let us know of resources in your area and help us find other strong parent leaders. So I'm going to leave a little time for questions on this. And then, Susan, if we still have more time, I can then go into my PowerPoint for the Michigan Kinship Care Coalition and
All right.
what we do.
You had a question for Mindy, and she's on again.
Yeah, Mindy, John, Representative Roth doesn't cover the Lake County area, does he? I don't think he does. But anyhow, and I've worked, and I'm happy to see Mindy on here. I've worked with Mindy and Representative Roth. When he was a freshman, I had coffee with him and started my spiel about kinship caregivers, so he knows me well. and then Senator Vanderwall was my senator at the time. So, and then Betsy Cuffia covers a lot of this area. She's been a great champion for us. And so I can talk a little bit more about that when I go into the other PowerPoint about the Michigan Kinship Coalition that I am on the steering team for. So are there any questions about AFSN or the work that we do?
I'll just share one quick thing, Deb. Part of what is stressed about some of these family events, and I want to kind of explain some of the reasoning behind it. The two pieces are being with others that have that same liked experience. There's just nothing like being with another family that gets it from the same position of lived experience. But the idea being, one, if we can create opportunities for events that families couldn't have afforded, period. There just wasn't going to be the opportunity for that. An example is we'll go to the Upper Peninsula and help families get to be a tourist in their own town. There's attractions they've seen their entire lives and never gotten to experience right there next door. They've driven past that fun spot thousands of times to go to the store and never been. So an opportunity to get to have some of those normal experiences, if you want to call that. But the other idea behind these family engagement type activities is this is intimidating to say you're struggling, or you might have some feelings, or you're not quite sure what you're seeing. So the idea is to be able to connect with families in a more natural, the pressure's off. It's not about something deep. And by doing that, we can build relationships with families to kind of grow some of that trust so that they can maybe ask another question that's a little bit deeper, I'm a child that grew up part of my childhood in kinship care in Newaygo County with my aunt and uncle. And I know for a fact they had questions that they did not ask. There was support that I could have had. And they would say, we just didn't know who to ask, or you just didn't want to put your stuff out there, if that makes sense. And especially with relative caregivers, I think this is a really big piece of it. And so if we can build those trusting relationships, it puts the guard down for asking or needing that other support. And the other part is with those statewide support groups that are online, I put little stat from just the last month in the comments, just to grasp the idea. Sometimes you don't even have to talk in there, but somebody else asks a question and you get an answer or a resource you didn't even know you were looking for. You had no idea about. So we always want to encourage families to know that support is there, but also there's just nothing mandated about it. There's nothing case management about it. There's no form to fill out. And that's a nice kind of sales pitch, if you will, when you're working with a family, when you're training parents or any of that, just to go, hey, this is just for you if you want it. There is no strings attached. You can come and go as you please. There is no case management. That piece of it is, we're not one more system they're involved in. So I always like to make sure that we share that as well. It's a soft place to land. Parents are in control. Parents guide their experience and what they want to take from that.
Yeah, and I just want to, for those that are on the Zoom, just knowing again that people might be able to try to search for AFSN, but it really is word of mouth that has to get out there about what we are and what we do for all families who are raising children other than their own. So that's where we really need your help too. So
I have a question. So my adoptive daughter, she needed counseling and it took forever to get her a counselor. Is there an easier way to get these children the counseling that they need rather than waiting for months and months? Do you guys have the resources for that?
So Susan, were you still part of the formal foster care system early on when you needed to try to get counseling for her?
It was recently that we needed the counseling, and she's 14 now. She was actually 13 at the time we started. So we had adopted her for 12 years already.
Yeah. So you needed it later, and when you adopted her, you didn't have a DOC or subsidy, medical subsidy for anything.
Yes.
So
there is a medical subsidy. But it was finding that counselor because we all know
the right. Yeah. So we try to find that through other parents who have had success with counselors, and we don't have it out there on the website who we would recommend for anybody, but we do know of counselors in areas that help with kids who have come with high ACEs or trauma. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just didn't, if there was some resources to make it easier to find a counselor, because it took us a while. Luckily, we were able to find one that specialized in adoption and trauma.
Yeah, quite honestly, like we'll have like an internal list of therapists that we've worked with other state providers too, to say we've done everything we can to try to collect a list of therapists that are going to take the different subsidies, so we could kind of know, are those. It's always so tricky, especially right now with the rate that the subsidy is going to pay versus what they could get in private market and those places like that. It's always a tricky space. What I will say is, for families that are connected within AFSN or in that village space, man, word of mouth is a big thing. It's a big thing. And having connections to a lot of therapists to be able to go, hey, we got a family that's really looking for this resource. What do you think? Do you got a spot on your caseload? That little bit that sometimes one of us, or we have 89 of those trained parent leaders across the state, but just another strong parent in the group that might have a connection to a therapist. It's amazing what the word of mouth can get to get you in a door that calling couldn't sometimes. Like it's ridiculous, and it's not always the same level playing field, but there is a space and a truth to that. And I do think it can open up opportunities or ways where we could suggest to speed up the process, like, okay, have these documents ready. So you're just going to be able to know, here's an expected cost above. Are you able to do that? So you could kind of know some of the answers first. But because I agree, like the first most exhausting step is navigating to try to find the resource in the first place before you even get to therapy to do the work. If there's 5 people looking for a therapist, 3 are going to end up making it to 1 because one's just going to give up. It was hard just in the first step of looking. One gets stuck waiting, so it's a process to that. So if we can help speed the process of navigating up, that's honestly like the biggest step for families, because working in a system like this, you already have a step above the next person of navigating. So imagine if you didn't have any knowledge to navigate. And that's that space where we're trying to, if we can get the resource to them faster, like you were saying with the therapy, the more likely they are to use the service. And that's the step we want, is access when we can. We are seeing waiting lists. I was really surprised. I mean, Kent County used to have a long list where I live and for services like therapy. The waiting lists are going down if there's even a waiting list. That I am seeing as a trend across systems. It is a struggle for how qualified the practitioners are. Sometimes, the experience level now in some of those systems that are qualifying for state pay, or, just a lot of people are going to that private market setting. But that said, there is training in place, systems in place to help guide that process along. But I am seeing the wait slowing down. So that is nice, that access to services, I do see more uptake happening in comparison to what we were looking at a year and a half ago, which was just boggling.
Yeah, I think with our legislations working on the mental health piece as hard as they are too,
They
in all
are.
the agencies. And the other thing is that, Susan, that was a perfect question to pose on that Facebook page. And, you'd be surprised at someone in your area might see that, or they might say, what county are you from? And I just had an event, tie-dye event at my house with a foster, adoptive, and guardianship kinship parents on Saturday, and I had a mom come from Cadillac, and she was telling me what success she's had working with Kim Seidel from Mount Pleasant, and she's doing it virtual, and she said it has been amazing. So so that's a perfect kind of question that people would pose on the Facebook page. So
Thanks. Well, we're waiting. Mary or Sharon, do you have anything to add?
One thing I would add is I think that these wait lists for private providers vary across the state. And I think it's difficult, but I do think that when you have another person who's had a positive experience and you can take that into the ask, you're in better shape.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
All right, let me make sure. Okay, so I am a part of the Michigan Kinship Care Coalition. We also have the Michigan Kinship Care Resource Center at MSU, who we had worked with. They are starting not starting. They have been working on a kinship navigation program that MDHHS has asked them to do. They're building an evidence-based one. So we have adoption navigators and we have foster navigators, but we never had kinship navigators. So we're working with MSU, and that is going to become a reality real soon. And they are a resource for our kinship caregivers. So out of that, in 2015, I began working with just part-time professor at MSU and who was School of Social Work and leading the way for this coalition. And it was just three of us, I think, who were going to legislators and trying to raise awareness about the kinship families who mostly were informal, but not only informal, how the dynamics changed in the family for even the people in the formal child welfare system, and how difficult it was to take care of these children. So, and find the resources that they needed. So, but the coalition is an inclusive network of diverse voices, including caregivers with lived experience, professionals across multiple systems, including child welfare, aging services, legal advocacy, nonprofits, and elected officials across the state of Michigan. So our mission is to be an inclusive network of voices collaborating to strengthen and increase support for kinship families through advocacy, increased education, and raised awareness to equip all families to thrive. So we've held forums. We have a Dome Day in September because it's recognized, September is recognized as Kinship Care Month. And so there's a number of things that we do throughout the year. Our vision is to bring together diverse allies to ensure all kinship families have access to the support they need to provide a vibrant future for their children and their care. And our values and our work is driven by the inclusion of voices and leadership of kinship families, collaboration with diverse group of stakeholders from across the state, maximizing partnerships to achieve high quality, coordinated systems of support, and commitment to advocating for improved outcomes. So our structure, we have 3 subcommittees. The communications subcommittee is to gather and share current information on happenings in the kinship care world, internally, externally, providing support to other coalition committees to coordinate and fulfill their purpose. I am on the policy advocacy. I'm a co-chair with Lindsay Huddleston from Michigan's Children. We work closely with Michigan's Children to identify policy and advocacy opportunities for members that will help support the mission, vision, and values of the MKCC and increase the knowledge and support of general public, media, stakeholders, and policymakers. And then mobilizing the field. They are the ones who establish new support in the communities. They create network of support groups, share information, set up surveys. I don't know if anybody's familiar with OSHA or OLSA in Oakland area. It's a community action agency. And Lisa from that agency does a grandparents raising grandchildren support group, and she's on this mobilizing the field subcommittee. And they just bring she and Anita Rothert from the Guidance Center in Region 1A, I believe it is, do some amazing work for us. So the MKCC meets as a full coalition every other month. And with that, we bring an hour of training before we break out into just talk about what we've done in the last month or what we're working towards. This is a card that I can share that comes from the Resource Center. And, if you need these in your libraries, if you want these at at the Area Agency on Aging, wherever you would like these, I can get these for you and get those. Because kinship, people still don't understand the word kinship. And so the part of our work was people have to understand kinship and what kinship is. And so some people are thinking, well, kinship's only if you're in the formal foster care, system, or it's a legal term or whatever it is. And really, kinship care is anyone who has a bond or is a relative to a child is a kinship caregiver, no matter how those children came in to your home to be cared for. So this card kind of explains that. And so if anybody needs those, let me know and we can get those to you. MSU and the Kinship Care Resource Center also made a wonderful legal guide. And I have that in a PDF because my work in Benzie County, we've seen this Michigan Grand Facts, so I'll go through that. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, the legal guide. So the legal guide and what we're trying to do, and you'll see, I'll tell you about that when we get to one of the other screens, but the work that I'm trying to do in Benzie and Manistee County and the surrounding areas that I'm going to try to make some changes in. So statewide, we're, like I said, we're doing the forums. We've had symposium. This last Dome Day, we have legislators who are interested in being a part of a legislative caucus, which is really what we needed because, I always talk to legislators and say, we're trying to fix a broken foster care system, but you have 10,000 to 11,000 of those who are in that system, while we have these underestimated 54,000 kids and families in Michigan who are struggling. Not all of them are struggling, but they're struggling. And I think we're driving them deeper and deeper into poverty because there is, and when I was getting in a guardianship in 2004, I was getting $158 a month in TANF. It's temporary assistance for needy families. It is a child-only grant, so it goes on the child's income. If the child has no income, that's the $158 you get a month. We're in 2023, and guess what, folks? TANF is still $158 for those families. To me, that's ludicrous that we aren't looking at that we aren't trying to find a way to change it. So that's the kind of things that we're working on. So locally, we're raising awareness, the kinship peer support groups, human service collaboratives. So in Benzie, Manistee, I'm working with David Burns, and David is a retired child welfare director in Michigan, DC, Colorado, Arizona. He has been pulled out of retirement. He revamped the whole kinship kinship care part of didn't matter whether you were formal or informal in a county at a local level, and was given the power to do some changes in El Paso County, Colorado. And we're still looking at trying to do that work here. He was close to getting that kind of work here way back in the 1990s, I think. But then he got called to another job, and then nobody carried the torch on in that. So David and I presented to the Human Service Collaborative in Benzie, Manistee, and from that they formed a work group because we would like to see a position so that people who are going to or contemplating, or CPS has told them to go get a guardianship, we're trying to get the information to those people before they sign that paperwork so they know what they're signing up for. Because these things happen. You might see them coming, but these things happen when you're asked to take care of your children or a relative child. And oftentimes they're told to go get a guardianship, and it's a knee jerk, and they have no idea what that really, really means and what it encompasses down the road. So we're asking for this boilerplate language, and this is what we wanted, having the legislative caucus formed, which we're hopeful will help us get this. So during the fiscal year 2024, MDHHS shall research and develop the structure and resources necessary to implement pilot programs to focus on systematic change beyond navigation services, to include wraparound services and financial support to kinship families with a special emphasis on informal kinship care. Such resources shall include, but not be limited to, the possible expansion of TANF, that's that $158, and other funding for informal kinship families. In the same year, MDHHS will study, select, and plan for funding of pilot execution beginning in the fiscal year 2025. That's David and I are working towards that in our county. And we have a lot of support. So we could be one of those pilot programs if we can get this boilerplate language and some appropriation for it. Again, you know, a lot of the focus has always been on the formal foster care system. And so that's why we are adamant about that. We have to level the playing field for those families too. They're doing exactly the same work. They just aren't in the formal foster care system. So simply, while we know how many children are in formal foster care, we do not know how many are in informal care or have been diverted away from the formal child welfare system, where there is little to no oversight and no support. Generations United estimates that for every child in formal kinship care, 11 or 12 children are living in informal kinship arrangements outside the child welfare system. That number likely includes children in both informal and diverted kinship care. Because good policy decisions must be data-driven, we are asking the state to develop a data collection system that illuminates how many children are being cared for by kin and under what legal or informal arrangements. Without this basic insight, it is difficult to ultimately determine the level of support and daily living expenses, medical treatment, and mental health care that is required to help these children overcome their traumas and thrive. It was mind-boggling to me to find out that that number is estimated at 54,000 because there is no data collection on people who are in guardianships. I went to a judge and asked him, can you tell me how many minor guardianships you have? And he says, yeah, I think I can get that for you. And he went to his registrar, and the registrar said, no, I can't do that for you. All of ours are lumped together. So that's conservatorships, that's limited guardianships, that's all the different kinds of guardianships. All he could say to me is, I can tell you that the majority of, because I do the annual reviews, the majority for this county, which is a smaller county, the number is pretty great. And we went to, I also went to the state court administrator's office, and long story short, they have to figure out a way to that they can legally share. So I didn't get much information, but they knew that of the 54,000 children living in Michigan and the 4,600 that were in formal placements, 16,038 were in minor guardianships, but 33,287 children living with kin were in a power of attorney. They have no legal tool whatsoever. Most of those people are in those power of attorneys, and they don't even know that they expire in 6 months. I have people say, I went to the doctor, and I showed them my paper, and they said, no, we can't treat them. Your thing is expired. A lot of counties are doing it just because if they're small, they know these people, and the child needed care, and so they're doing it. These are just pictures from our Dome Day. My daughter last year spoke on what it was to be a kin kid, and the things and the worries that she's had over the years with living with grandparents on fixed income, and how she was going to go to college and living with a challenging brother. So we usually have, we always have a speaker at our Dome Day. So this was one of our legislators that said, I didn't even realize that my parents raised a cousin for a little while. So I didn't realize that was a kinship situation. So those are our legislators, and so those are that's the awareness that we have to bring. So that's it in a nutshell. Those are the two hats I wear.
Does anybody have any questions? I think we're right. Yeah, we're a little bit over, but
we are over. Yeah, sorry about
if you have any questions, though, go ahead. I've got a little bit of time if you can stay on. Any questions at all? Any comments? Any surprises?
We would love to have anybody that wants to be a part of the coalition. We would love to have you join us on the coalition.
Anybody? What can so as a substance-free coalition in our community, what can we do to best support these families?
I think using AFSN as a resource for them is going to be huge. I had Safety Net call me yesterday because he had a grandmother that's just simply overwhelmed. And because, it was in my county, he was able to get a hold of me and say, can I refer her to you? Can I give her your number? And I said, certainly. And so I think it's just those referrals to, whether it's the Kinship Resource Center, whether it's AFSN, if they're formal families, just referring them to Park. It's just finding resources for them. I know they're overwhelmed.
Financially, so if they're in the kinship situation, they get, what was it, $100 and something dollars?
Well, they have to file for it, and it's very confusing to file for it. We've made a video for them that they can follow step by step, but nothing's easy, and you can't just pop into an office and have someone help you fill it out. They're asking people to go online, so we walk people through, it's those kind of things. It's, if they're close by, it's one-on-one. We work with you. So
there's about a $700, so for teenagers, if it's a teenager, there's about a $700 difference between if you adopt the child and you get that adoption subsidy, because it's a special adoption, and a kinship situation there. So right. There's about $700 per child difference.
In every situation for a kinship caregiver, whether a grandparent or not, the first thing I always ask them, are you 55? So that I can refer them to the Area Agency on Aging. The other thing is that, because they cover 10 counties here, they have a small pot of money that they use if people need something. The other thing is that I always ask them if they're 62 or on Social Security, because that makes a whole world of difference. When my husband became disabled, someone advised us to follow through with adoption. Because we would be able to start collecting Social Security for the kids versus the $158. So those were decisions that had to be made, and every family is different. And so it's complex. I always say it's very complex.
Well, and we know there's a family within our community that it's an elderly grandmother taking care of her grandchildren, several grandchildren, I guess, and she is still working when she should actually probably be retired.
Mm-hmm.
And she is getting barely anything to help support these children. And I know specifically one of them is kind of a handful. That's hard. That's a lot of stress. And to have that financial stress on top of the emotional stress of what she's going through, there's got to be something more that can be done to help these families.
And that's
One
what
last thing that I think of when you say that is perhaps one of the best things we can do is urge families to slow down when it comes to that space of protection for your kin and making decisions, and not to let like the first gateway to that guide and decide what type of kinship that ends up as, whether it's formal, informal. Did the kid go into the system? Did we avoid, the diversion? What I can tell you as a state now, they are working towards keeping kids with relatives, period. That is the trend of where it's moving finally. So with that being said, we were able at our own agency, we had a case where it was about to not be the best long-term solution for a family. And we were able to help advocate for that family. This was through our foster care side of things, but to be able to go back and say, hey, hold on a second, that's not the best long-term solution for these parents, like for these kinship caregivers, and to rectify that and to be able to make some modifications. And so to help families know in that fear space, it's still okay to slow down and not make a long-term decision in that moment, to take time to get some resources, to talk to that kinship resource center, to be able to look at that navigator program, to go, okay, what are the options? What are these different types of guardianship, to make sure, those spaces, because we see too many families that just, if we had gotten to them, to be able to say, hold on, just for 1 second, you have options possibly, like to look at that, never broken promises, but to help them understand sometimes it is the better option for a child to become part of systems, for the access to what they could, and for those caregivers. So, and sometimes there's just not a need, and you can also look at that too. So we're there both ways. We won't give legal advice, but we want families to know they should see and look at those options.
I think with us, because we adopted our granddaughter she was about 1.5 years, and we adopted her. We got her at 5 months old. And although they tried to get the parents to step up and do everything, they weren't capable at the time because of the, SUD. But I was thankful that we had a caseworker that cared in our community, and she walked us through the steps. And actually we went through both Bethany, and then our DHHS caseworker would not let go of the case. She wanted to make sure the right things happened. And that's what we need. We need people walking people through it to understand what they were going through. We literally adopted our granddaughter the same month our youngest son graduated from high school. So we started all over again. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm glad we did that. And she's been a blessing. There are struggles because the little bit of, especially with her dad, who is my son, and sometimes he'll walk in and he still tries to take a little bit of that I'm the dad type thing, attitude, when he's legally not, but at the same time, I understand his feelings, his concerns, and then situations like with her mother, who is out of the picture. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like I said, though, I wouldn't change it a bit.
Yeah. And I think Susan, being at the age that she is, she's trying to figure out her identity, and we all know what we felt like at 13. So yeah. And yeah, I'm thankful to hear that, that same kind of case management that you got, that's what we would love to have for our informal families. And if we can do it at a local level where we know these families, we know the resources that we have, it couldn't get better than that. And
right. I think at the same time, we have to understand that these caseworkers that work for like DHHS, it is stressful. It is extremely stressful going through these situations, to walking into these homes and dealing with some of the things that they're doing. I think also as communities, we have to understand, because a lot of times people think that just, rip the kids out of the home. And as Sharon, as like with trauma, that's traumatic for kids. And I mean, if we can work with families before we pull kids out of the home, if it's not a severely dangerous, instant or, dangerous situation right there and then, I think it's best to work with the families, because that's trauma not only for the parents, who a lot of times are struggling with SUD because of their own trauma or other situations that they're going through, but that's traumatic for the kids. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't trained in understanding that trauma and how to, deal with it. So
that mindset shift of, instead of like pulling them out, what can we put in?
right.
What can we pour in
What
to
kind of
this
support?
family? What can we know we tried? That space of, it's that double-edged sword. You're trying to, protect kids and families, but you are saying, like, when it's not an emergent need, what could we possibly do
Right.
to be a hope provider, that space.
Right. That's one of the things we're trying to do here in Kalkaska through the 45th Parallel Resilience Network, and Sharon and Mary, as we're trying to go into, different organizations and dealing with like parents of Head Start. We're trying to get in
Yes.
offer an ACEs training for Head Start parents so they can understand trauma.
Understand their own trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
And this is what my child's dealing with. So we're really trying to push the whole adverse childhood experiences and trauma education here in our community, to try to get the whole community to understand it, and parents, teachers, all the different sectors, so we can work together as a community to be able to support these children. And if the parents just can't do it, or there's a situation where it's not bad enough to pull the child out, there's individuals within the community that can give that support to that child, because as we know, it takes one person, right, Sharon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
those touches are everything. I mean, I look back, speaking as a kinship kid, those little things. Every one of us as a kid, we remember those little people that were just that little bit of grace they gave us, or that little extra love in those spaces. It's amazing. It's amazing the difference that it will make.
I have students in my school that have lost a parent to overdose. I have one particular kid, it just breaks my heart. He'll be graduating soon, but his mother passed away from an overdose. I believe his dad is incarcerated. The family took his sister, but they didn't take him, and he was placed in foster care. And he will be turning 18, so he can go out on his own. But the trauma that he's gone through, and the anger that he's felt over the whole situation, and I don't blame him a bit, but just to be able to be there and support him, and for him to understand, this is your life from this point on. You can do, you're going to be 18, you can build your own life. You can be whatever you want to be, and you don't have to, you're not, your identity isn't what has happened to you. It's what you create for yourself.
Yeah.
So
you get it. Well, thank you everyone for having me.
Like I said, we went a little bit over, but it was a good conversation, and I think people need to understand this. And Mindy, I'm glad you were here. Hopefully, we can start making some changes, within our communities and state.
You already are. And that's the part to remember too. It's what you guys are already doing. There's mighty larger counties, and they're not doing some of the work you guys are really doing up there. And it's amazing. And it's fun to hop on calls like this to be able to see what your representatives are doing, and what you guys are doing in these programs, and how you're training families and parents and communities. And you're doing big things up there already. It gives me chills when I get to watch it and see it. It's exciting to see the difference that's happening up there. It's an example is what it is.
Thank you.